So today is a lot about journeying, and somebody who has been journeying a lot with us is our beloved Reverend Jeff. And what can I tell you about Reverend Jeff? The three of us, Reverend Jeff, Reverend Leslie, and myself, we found the New Vision Center within a couple of months of each other, not knowing that we would be journeying for almost 14 years together. And so Reverend Jeff completed with working here as our communication manager in December, and he is a minister, and now he's coming back to delight us and inspire us and be with us this morning. Please help me welcome my good friend, Reverend Jeff Hargis.
Ooh, yeah. I knew this was going to happen. It is so good to be here again, and God, so many people are coming home today. I saw practitioner Gina and Larry and John Pino and, oh God, now I'm going to forget some folks. Well, and for me, I'm just seeing you all fresh once again. So it is so, so wonderful to be here again. And for those of you that are new, well, just hang on. We're just going to kind of go through things, and you'll be kind of given an update of who I am and what I'm doing, and we'll have fun together while going through it. So, what is apparent to me is that we are given two worlds from which to live in. We often speak of that one world being the world of effects, where it is fraught with drama and fear, where we feel a sense of separation, both to life and to each other, and that we are generally living in this illusion that seems so real to us and so important. Everything that we are doing in this world of effects just seems so important. We also live in a world of duality, of right and wrong, and of good and evil, and God, especially this last 10 years of us and them. It just seems to be so prevalent with us. And it is a world of opinions and judgments and expectations. The other world, so much easier to talk about. It is that inner expression of our own being, where we tap into that idea of who we really are, where we are tapped into that source of good and love and joy, where we intuitively get those pings of knowledge, where we hear that still, soft voice within that is guiding and directing us. It is truly the true world for which we seek on earth. Navigating these two things is really the adventure that we are on here in life, isn't it? Sort of navigating these two worlds of the world of effects and then, being reminded of who I truly am. And putting together this talk today, I did some things just to kind of ground myself. I did one of my most favorite practices of all. I went over to the Franciscan Renewal Center to walk that beautiful Labyrinth one morning. And so when I was there, I was contemplating this idea of coming home to myself. And of course, what we're speaking about is not our physical homes that we enter into, but rather opening that door into that internal knowing and truth of who we are. And where we absolutely experience that unity in life. And it came to me this idea of the title of this talk, which is The Inner Labyrinth, A Path Home. And so Richard Rohr, he's just all over this kind of idea. He says about labyrinths, these circular paths are a way of learning and praying through movement instead of thinking. Labyrinths seem to have emerged from the collective unconscious, representing a clear path to center, to the divine. A classical labyrinth has 7 cycles, each representing a stage of life, and 7 U-turns as we learn to change course at least that many times in life. A straight line trajectory grows no one. It only makes you more and more rigid and inflexible. And so at this cross section of both these worlds, that of the human experience and that of that inner sacred soul's journey, there is inserted into this labyrinth of life a pathway for which we seek to always come home. Now, here is what I know. There is inevitably somebody here in the sanctuary or watching online that is feeling that inner call, that inner deepening, that somehow right now you're in a place of feeling desperately homesick because we have veered from that inner path. And so I will invite you, and I also recognize that you are at that precipice. I love using that word. You're at the precipice, at the edge, and if you haven't already jumped in, you are about to do so. And so I'm asking and inviting us, those of you that are in that place, to hold that in your heart as we walk through this talk today, because I have some ideas and some reflections and some invitations for us that will help us to guide our ways in navigating this path home. And so this includes 3 things, because it is a talk, and we have 3 things to talk about. It is about paying attention to the deeper meaning of life, of things. Someone once said that humans are meaning-making machines. I'm pretty sure that was Reverend Michelle Madrano. I'm not positive, but I think she said that. And so how can we take what happens, especially when it is negative in connotation, and how can we step into or translate that into something that is meaningful? And second, I'm introducing something that I'm calling being at home in the divine, or how do we keep a constant foot in that second how do we keep a foot in that second world while experiencing life here as human beings? And last, I'm going to speak about something called secondary rediscovery, which in essence is about seeing all of life for a second time and recognizing the awe in it all. And so often, we encounter in this world of effects great challenges that are presented to us that seem so counter to the direction that we are going. It's like walking on that labyrinth and encountering that U-turn. It kind of takes us off the original trajectory that we had initially intended for ourselves. And this looks like the loss of somebody in our lives. It looks like the loss of a job. It looks like a challenge in our health. It often provokes that ridiculous question that we in this movement sometimes ask ourselves in shame: how did I create this in my life? Or projecting it to someone else. Geez, I wonder how they created that in their life. It happens, and we ask ourselves that. And what we are really asking ourselves to do, or what I am challenging you to do, is to take a step away from that and ask yourself. I keep thinking of Reverend Penny Masick, who was a senior minister once a time ago, that when I was in the office and I was sitting there bitching about something, and she inevitably would say something to the effect of, "What's in this for you, Jeff?" And it would pull me back to a bigger idea, a bigger picture of what was happening in my life and allowing me to go a little bit deeper. Einstein spoke of a story that when he was a little boy of like 6 or 7 years old, his father gave him a compass. And he noted that when he was just looking at the compass, that regardless of how he turned the instrument, the needle always stood, actually, north. Wait, north. North, thank you. I've been here for 15 years and I still can't point out north. And he noticed it was therefore that he recognized that there was something invisible that he couldn't see that underlies our reality, making that needle point north. And he later said in life that it was his first encounter with an idea, which, if you look at nature carefully and really pay attention, you can catch a glimpse of something deeply hidden. It is in that deep structure of reality. It's what reality really is for us. And yet I acknowledge how hard it can be when we are in those trenches of trauma to pull ourselves out. And I love, Reverend Karin was speaking to this last week, there is that picture of the a white light all around, and in the middle is a big black hole. And it is so enveloping our view that we cannot see past what is actually all light. And it is such a wonderful recognition of that. And it is here that I know intuitively every single one of us has that ability just to sense that inner soft voice coming through, and that is what I call faith. This is that moment of stepping forward, even in the face of what looks like the end of the world. It's like walking on a labyrinth and taking a big view and being so overwhelmed by all the turns and twists and all that's going on there. If we focus ourselves into what is right before us, we don't have to know exactly where we're going to be going in 30 steps. Rather, we know exactly the step to take next. And it is in that faith that inevitably, always, 100% of the time, brings us back to center. Because when we are at home in that divine, when we acknowledge that that thing exists around us somewhere, it is part of us, it can't help but to guide us through those troubled waters. And I think about speaking of that there is the two fish that are swimming together, and they're having this little conversation with each other, and one of them makes a statement, I keep hearing this thing called water, and I look, and I look, and I look, and I can't find it. We speak a lot about the universe is conspiring for our good, because there is absolutely an intelligence that we are immersed in right here and now that is guiding and directing us. I think, Reverend Leslie, you were speaking some time ago around the complete dynamics of this law that we are engaged in, this law of God, that is so dynamic, but it is there for our good, and everything that we contribute into this law is there conspiring for that good. And it may involve all of these interactions that we have with various people that are also engaging the law. But it is a very dynamic thing, oftentimes beyond our scope of understanding, yet we stay in that faith that it is there and now. And when Reverend Karin asked me to speak today, and that the theme was coming home to myself, I had to take a deep breath and just reflect upon the journey that has been my story. And as Reverend Karin was saying in my introduction, as of late this, or in the middle of December, I decided to complete here at New Vision Center. And I've been here. I was an employee for like 7 or 8 years, and I was thinking 15 years, maybe it was 14 years as a community member. And so this place had become part of my soul. Everything about this place was in my soul. And in early of last year, I also became a minister, and it was my intention to become a senior minister somewhere in the country or even outside of the country. But what I found myself doing was nothing. I really wasn't doing anything towards this goal as I was in this totally nurtured, safe office that I inhabited. I would easily sidestep the buck as it passed me by and went into these two offices here. And it was a very safe place for me, but what I was finding is that there was a pain that was beginning to develop in my soul, and it was a pain of a calling that was being unanswered. And so what I know is that Michael Beckwith says this. He says that pain pushes us until the vision pulls us. And it came that moment when that very first spark of light when I said, I need to let go of New Vision Center, that I finally felt that vision start to pull me in the direction that I wanted to go. And since my departure, I have been immersed in either talking at various centers on Sundays, or if I'm not doing that, then I am going to churches of different denominations and just being as a congregant in each one of these services, and bringing those questions forth, like, what is the minister doing right now? Is he part of the community, or is he just popping out right when he's supposed to get on stage? How do I feel when I go onto the campus? Do I feel welcomed? And I always make it a point to let them know that this is my first time visit, and just kind of get back and see what happens from there. And do they follow up? And do I feel safe? And what is the production like? What is the band like? By the way, amazing. Amazing production. Amazing ministers. But generally speaking, it has been such a wonderful journey just to experience this and take note of those things that I loved or that inspired me, or that I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to take that into my whatever new community it is that I find myself in. And in addition to that, meeting with mentors and recognizable folks in this movement, and asking questions and presenting challenges, and I'm certainly doing my practice. I started a habit of going to Franciscan Renewal Center to walk that Labyrinth, because this has been my new way of really connecting deeply with it. And so it has been a wonderful journey. And what has become known to me is that there are probably like 3 communities right now that are about to post the senior minister's position. And I am so excited about it. It is something that each one of them sounds wonderful to me, and I am engaging the interim ministers that are there now and just speaking through that. And it's kind of just gaining this momentum right now that's really exciting for me. So that's where I am right now. And as a reminder, Ernest Holmes says this: We must let every path lead us back to the point where we realize the inner presence of the great reality. There, through the door of our own thought, we enter into this universal consciousness, into complete realization of life and truth, of love and of beauty. It is that faith that I am truly seeing my life unfolding in such a way that is truly inspiring to me anyway. And in that faith and trust, we are also asked to be present, because we know that it goes beyond that destination. We know this, we hear it 100 times. It is the journey itself to that destination that is that awe-inspiring, that thing that really uplifts us. And there is a writer by the name of Jedediah Jenkins who writes about something that he calls a secondary rediscovery that kind of addresses this. The story goes like this, that in his late 30s, Jedediah was working for a nonprofit in San Diego, and along with a bunch of others, he was working on a project with an organization in Uganda whereby they would bring a bunch of young adults to America. Now, knowing that Uganda is a landlocked country, they were really mindful about the experience of them coming out and setting them, being San Diego, by the ocean, to let them experience that for probably the first time for many of them. And so the time came, and the delegation of the Ugandans came forth, and along with them, they also had some chaperones. One in particular was a 72-year-old gentleman by the name of Norman. And when it came time, Jedediah wrote that he watched Norman become very emotional and transfixed as he looked at the potency and the power of the ocean. And Norman said that truly, this is a miracle, as he just stood in front of it. And just standing there in awe, and although he had seen the ocean 100 times in pictures and videos, standing there physically absolutely brought him into this state of absolute awe, and he began just walking forth right into the ocean, fully dressed, and just allowed it to immerse him in the water. And Jedediah was so moved and said that it reminded him of one of his favorite feelings, which is secondary rediscovery. Jedediah lived by the ocean and had seen it hundreds of times, but seeing it again from a new perspective, with fresh eyes for the first time, there was just such a re-emergence of the beauty that lied in front of him. And so just witnessing that was a miracle to him as well. Rumi says this, he says, if you and I are not in awe, we're not paying attention. And I have this video where I was walking the Labyrinth a couple of weeks ago when I was doing this work. It'll pop up here eventually. And I encountered this little guy as I was walking the Labyrinth, and I was so transfixed by this little lizard that began, you'll see in a second, he was going to begin digging a little hole and a little trench, and he was completely undisturbed by me. And I was so taken. It's a short video, but I sat there, I kind of squatted down and just watched for like 5 minutes, and I was overwhelmed by feelings of awe and feelings of absolute gratitude for just the journey that I am on now. And it really just, it set me forth for the rest of that day in a very good place. And so I'm gonna conclude with something that Richard Rohr says, and it is this: the goal in sacred story is always to come back home, after getting the protagonist to leave home in the first place. A contradiction, a paradox, yes. But now home has a whole new meaning, never imagined before. And as we transcend this idea of that world of effects and step lightly into this world of the soul, we do so coming from that place of introspection, of finding that deeper meaning in life, and with the knowledge that we are truly guided, protected, and guarded at all times. And so I am so grateful to this community, and I stand in awe in front of you for all that we have experienced together. And I thank you deeply that when you all heard that I was letting go of this center, I was let go in love and especially in faith that I was going to build something even bigger than what I was experiencing here. And so I thank you for that. I love you. And let's take that to prayer. And so we breathe into this mystery that we call life, knowing in full faith and confidence that as we do so, there is this greater idea, this greater expression, this huge, infinite, unlimited source by which we recognize ourselves to be. And it is in this place of power and faith that I step forward and speak a word for this community, for the path that we are on collectively and individually, knowing that there is truly a light that is revealing itself to each one of us. As we see that light in our own lives, we allow for it to guide us, to protect us, to lead us in the way of our highest good. And in this collective expression, I also recognize this community in my heart, recognizing that there is truly a wonderful unfolding that is happening here as well. As new individuals step forth into this, as reoccurring congregants start stepping up in leadership, as our practitioner and our practitioner students lead and guide through the philosophy, through the principles, as we just stand together in celebration of life. I give grateful thanks. And I release this word into that universal law in action that only knows good, that only conspires for that good. And I let it be, and I call it good. And together we know this truth by saying together, and so it is.